hitting our record button. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining. We're here with Dr. Phyllis Bivens-Hudson and Mr. Steve Bollar. Phyllis is a 30-year education veteran who has served in various teaching and leadership positions in New Jersey. He is also a founding instructor with the Rutgers Alternate Route Teacher Training Program at the Center for Effective School Practices and the author of Helping New Teachers Succeed, a mentoring handbook developed through a grant from the New Jersey Department of Education. Steve is the founder of the Stand Tall brand, the author of several leadership books, a former superintendent of schools, and an international speaker on the topic of leadership and school culture. Phyllis and Steve, take it away.
Thank you, Heather. Just one little quick correction. That is now 41 years into education.
Whoa.
So, been around quite a while, since 1979, actually. So, Steve, it's really nice to be here with you today and on this particular platform, and such an honor to host this interview with someone such as yourself, because in my opinion, you're one of the most influential education leaders among us.
Well, thank you.
So welcome. I'm really excited about getting started, so we're just going to get right into it with our first question. So how did you go from a classroom art teacher to education leadership and influencer, helping districts nationally create a climate of learning, kindness, and caring for students? So how did you do that? What was the magic?
Oh, the magic. That's a good word for it. Yeah, I started off as an elementary art teacher. I taught pre-K to third grade art. Now, for those who can't see me, I'm a 6'7" black man. You don't see too many 6'7" black men in pre-K to third grade classroom, but I'm a classically trained artist. I can paint or draw anything. That's kind of interesting. People don't realize about me. So when I became an art teacher, I loved it. It's like throwing a party every 40 minutes. It's wonderful. But when I had a teacher evaluation by my principal, and at the end of it, he called me back and he says, by the way, Steve, make sure you go back to school for something. Get your master's. And at the time, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. And he says, you could be an administrator. You could do whatever you want. And I said, administrator? Really? And he says, yeah, why not? So I started to really look at administrators. And I realized I don't like them. I didn't feel that they were being the creative person I was. I felt they weren't creative. They didn't take chances. They didn't put excitement into the position to run a school. So I went into administration because I wanted to be the creative administrator. I wanted to bring creativity into administration, and because I didn't like them. I had some bumps and bruises along the way, but eventually I learned how to bring that creativity strategically into administration so that you're running schools and you have a climate and culture that really does infuse the instruction. And from there, I've always loved speaking in front of people. My father's a minister. Maybe that's where it comes from. I don't know. I've never been afraid of talking in front of people. So I really got into the art of public speaking. And from there, I joined the National Speakers Association, and I started to share all the crazy things that I was doing in my schools that were getting results. And it kind of grew and grew and grew. And it got to a point once I became a superintendent that I had an opportunity to step away and start doing it full time. And so I said, you know what, let's do this. And, through NSA, National Speakers Association, I learned a lot about business and running your own business, because that's a big piece of it. Speaking and saying your information is one thing, but running it is another thing. So I took the leap about 4.5 years ago. And now this is what I do full time. I go all over the country helping schools and organizations do better with leadership, classroom management, idea development, and culture and climate.
Wow, that's impressive.
Thank you.
So that art room party was the magic. And
I think it was, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So you did all of the things that great leaders do, and we're grateful for that. As you know, Steve, we're at the precipice of a paradigm shift of which we have not known. So let's fast forward to 2020 and the pandemic and heightened social justice activity. You published Stand Tall Leadership. What does this work mean for school communities now?
Well, yeah, my new book, Stand Tall Leadership, it's interesting. I was building this book before the pandemic, and my mindset prior to the pandemic, prior to the social injustice that's been going on, was to get schools to start thinking differently about the environment and the leadership and how that can affect those under them. And, throughout the country, our leadership we've been seeing some crazy stuff as it relates to educational leadership, as it relates to national leadership and all kinds of things. So within this book, it breaks down exactly what climate and culture is and how you can alter it, focus it in different ways, even if it's virtual. One of the things that I've been doing over the last 3 weeks is because as soon as all the schools put out their program as to how they're reopening, I've been getting calls like crazy. As far as how do we do this virtually? Well, within my book and within what it is that I talk about efficiency versus effectiveness. When you want things to be very efficient, but yet you want them to be effective, where's that middle ground? I'll talk about compliance versus commitment in the book, because compliance, it's a form of accomplishment, but compliance is a low level of accomplishment. If you have commitment from people, then compliance is going to take care of itself. And so therefore, I talk about that in the book, and not just what it is, but how to get there, how to get people to that. Because if you're doing things virtually, you have these hybrid things and all this crazy thinking, you got to have people that are committed to it as opposed to just compliant. Otherwise, you're not going to get any growth. Because when everybody took off from, when we had this, pandemic and everybody got shut in, everybody says, oh, we got to do virtual learning. It wasn't virtual learning. It was emergency virtual learning, which basically means we were practicing what we were doing in an emergency setting right now. Now we're coming back to school. We want to see growth. Well, how are you going to get growth if you're just doing compliance? You got to do commitment. So we talk about that. I talk about results, how to get results. So it's just the timing of this is exciting to me. I kind of look back and I'm like, God, wow, you just kind of placed some things in me through this book that can help people. So there you go. That's pretty much what I'm looking at.
Wow. And that efficiency, the commitment, and the foresight, all of that is coupled together, the kinds of things that make you forever the progressive leader. And that's what we need. That's exactly what we need. And so with teachers in particular, who are sometimes omitted from important district decisions, how can they create space in their professional practice to embody the principles of Stand Tall leadership?
That's an excellent question, because I know a lot of times, specifically when we're talking about teachers, they feel a little powerless, and things are just handed to them and they're just kind of doing their own thing. One of the things that I stress, and it's actually the backbone of entire Stand Tall leadership, because I truly believe all educators are leaders in their own right, every single one of them. Even in your classroom, you're a leader. But the backbone of it all is what you respect and value. Clearly identifying what it is that you respect and value. And let's break it down to the classroom level. At the classroom level, a lot of times we have our students that come into the classroom. What do? We create some classroom rules. Even if it's virtual, you got to have some norms, some rules and things like that. And if it's physical classroom, we post the rules in the front of the room and everything like that. Don't do this, don't do this, do this, do that. You need to switch that up. Switch it to, what do you respect and value? Pick those words, 4 to 5 things. I respect hard work. I respect integrity. I respect relationships. I respect timeliness. I don't know. Pick the 4 or 5 things. Easy to remember for the kids. And as a teacher, you pick them. You pick them, especially now. If we do this with the kids, and I know sometimes we like to have the kids all involved in the process and everything like that. No, but everybody's a first-year teacher this year. Everyone, right? So pick these things, and then once you have these things, you live through them. You highlight the students when they showcase what it is that you respect and value in your classroom. You showcase them. You say, hey, way to go with that. I appreciate you doing that. And the more that you recognize them, the more that you reward them, the more that you reinforce that with them, the more likely you're going to get those results. And therefore, you're that leader, because not only are you showcasing and when they're doing it, you're showcasing when you're doing it as well. And therefore, when you have this over time, that creates your culture, whether it's virtual or face-to-face.
Wow. And you know, your belief, just your belief in the fact that all teachers are leaders is just fantastic. We need people like you to continue to say those things. But I think even more key to everything that you've said is about respect, because we know that it is tantamount to what we do. And that autonomy that you're offering teachers is certainly a welcomed thought. So I'm hoping that everybody will get an opportunity to read that book, because it's definitely needed.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, Steve, as you know, we are all now operating in that evidence-based culture. So evaluating impact has become critical for justifying any program, any initiatives that districts use. So what's the best way to know if a teacher is growing as a stand tall leader?
Well, that's the thing. It's when you're looking to see if they're growing in this area, it goes down to influence. To be honest with you, when you look at leadership, I mean, a lot of people have a lot of what's the word? A lot of definitions of what leadership is. Leadership is saying the right thing. Leadership is having vision. Leadership is setting the path, and leadership is influence, because you can't make anybody do anything. Teachers can't make kids work. Administrators can't make teachers teach. You can't make anyone do it. Leadership is what it is that you're doing has influence on others so that they move in a certain direction, moving in the direction of what you respect and value. So when you say we want to evaluate and see if people are moving in the right direction with this, what's their level of influence? What's the percentage of students that are moving forward in the direction that you want to see them move into? That's your level of influence. So if you have a low level of influence, you need to rethink about how you're talking to students, how you're interacting with students, what the expectations of the students are. Now, let's go back to compliance versus commitment. That works for kids as well. What are you expecting the kids to comply with you, or you want those kids to commit to you? And if you want those kids to commit to you, then your level of influence is going to skyrocket. So therefore that evaluation is going to skyrocket and everything's going to be fine. How do you get that level of commitment? Is by recognizing the students when they do what it is that you